I will start with this presentation with a bit of background and process we followed for the revision of these standards. As well, later on, I will then speak about the new key core indicators that the Standards Revision Committee has retained for this new version of the standard. And then after present all the new other indicators that are not core, to explain you what is new in the version of the standard that is coming. So as a very important point, and that is something important to Bonsucro, I wanted to reinforce the fact that we are a full ISEAL member. Being full ISEAL member means that it kind of forces us, but encourages us following the best practices for setting up a revision of the standards. So I see it as an organization that has other standard setting organization to manage a certification scheme. So when we did this revision of the standard, we have been following the ISEAL Code of Practice, meaning that we were really looking at ensuring a multi-stakeholder approach in the revision process. We have carried out a large number of consultations so we can capture the views of the stakeholders in our revision process. We aim at having decision-making process that is consensus-driven amongst the Standards Revision Committee, but as well among the members. And we recognize that science is key element in defining indicator of sustainability. So we've used science as much as possible in defining and revising the indicators of the standard. Finally, the standard is really focusing on the most significant sustainability issues within the sugarcane sector and aims at addressing those issues by a revised and reinforced standard. So the current version of the standard, which is version 3, has been approved in March 2011. Since then, certification has happened and MIL has been awarded certification. The board has approved the revision of the revision process in June 2012, and they have approved a process that is in line in full compliance with the ISEAL Code of Best Practice for Standard Revision. But already I would like to stress out that we've been beyond the requirement of the code by extending the number of consultations much wider than required by the code. For example, we had in total six consultations online and in person, again, the two required by the code of ISEAL. This is a timeline of the events that took place in the project status. So back in June 2012, when the board launched the revision of the standards. Between September and November 2012, we selected the member of the Standard Revision Committee, who met for the first time in November 2012 in London during the Bonsucro week, where we carried out our first consultation on the revision process. Then between January and March 2013, we ran our second public consultation, which was made online, to collect a wide number of comments from the stakeholders on the version 3 of the standard. Then between March and November 2013, the Standard Revision Committee carried out the detailed work of revising the standard and developing the new and updated indicators. In November 2013, we carried out our third public consultation in New Orleans at the same time that the Bonsucro week that was held in that city. And in December 2013 and January 2014, we carried out our fourth online consultation to follow the in-person consultation of New Orleans. In February 2014, we carried the fifth consultation in India. And between February 2014 and May 2014, we carried out 6 pilot audits, 2 in Brazil, 1 in India, 2 in Australia, and 1 in Honduras, to collect the views from the ground on the revised standard and assess how implementable the revised standard is. So collect information on how the indicators are understood, how they are implementable, how easy it is to collect the evidence of conformity, so we could fine-tune the requirements and end up with the final draft that we are presenting today. We are carrying our sixth and final public consultation, which is part of today's webinar, which is an online consultation before a vote of the members to approve the standard in July, that will take place in July 2014. So as a key element of the standard revision process is the standard revision committee. The committee is made of members representing each of the 5 classes of membership. The committee has been appointed by Bonsucro upon candidature of each members. And we have selected them according to their skills and availability and knowledge of the sugarcane sustainability issues. So the name of the participant of the Standard Revision Committee are displayed on the screen for each of the 5 categories of membership. And in brackets, you can find the ex-member of the Standard Revision Committee who left the Standard Revision Committee for various mainly and only for professional reasons, because they had moved jobs. So we have currently 5 members that have been active until yesterday, where we had our last meeting. So the prime role of the Standard Revision Committee is to deliver a final draft of the production standard and attached guidance. This final draft will be put to the members for adoption. So through this 2-year project, the Standard Revision Committee has reviewed, and it was one of their deepest work, reviewed all the comments received after every consultation, so they could assess their relevance, accept them, and take them into consideration to define and revise the indicators. They have acted as an advisor and sounding on to the Secretariat when we were discussing possible direction to take for the revision of the standards, because as well the Secretariat was in direct contact and in discussion with several numbers of external consultants, including a number of scientists. We carried out and we had 17 Standard Revision Committee meetings, the minutes of which are all available on the website, and I'm inviting you to have a look at our revision section of the Bonsucro website. We will find out all those minutes so you can see which element in discussion was made by the Standard Revision Committee. We had as well 2 in-person meetings in London and New Orleans. And during the phase of deep discussion and revision of the standards, we had a 12 individual phone meeting with each of the Standard Revision Committee members. So we had a very quality time, one-to-one quality time, to finalize and detail the work of revising each indicator. So here is a display of a document that we have been using when we were revising the standard. The first one is a spreadsheet, a big spreadsheet where we had all the comments received and where we were assessing the relevance and what is meant, how it could be interpreted, how it could be used for revising the standards. Then we are designing some work plan on defining what kind of action we want to make with the comment and which kind of development we want to create, to finally come to a certain number of revised and revision texts where we use mostly track changes and of different versions of documents, so we can have a clear follow-up of all the amendments made on the original documents. As I said, we carried out a large number of consultations, so 6 in total. I've summarized them here on that slide, where we can see that they were kind of all very well attended, mostly an average of 60 participants for the online or in-person consultation. The online consultation depends on the time of the year where it was carried out. 49 participants and 618 individual comments for the first online consultation. 6 companies participated to the second online participation, and today we're expecting 116 participants for those 4 webinars that we have been doing in 3 languages. Just so you know, to this current webinar, the last one of all the sessions we've already carried out. We did one in English this morning UK time, one in Portuguese at 2 p.m. UK time, one in Spanish at 4 p.m. UK time, and now this last one at 6 p.m. UK time. So we can allow a maximum number of stakeholders to take part to those webinars and learn and hear more about the revision of the standards. So I'm now going to discuss and introduce you to all the changes and major changes that we made from the draft that was presented in New Orleans to the draft we are presenting you today. You should have received all an email with the revised document, revised guidance, revised standard. If you haven't, don't worry. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to send you again those documents, and I will add a PDF of that presentation. So the main important changes is to look at what are the core indicators and if there have been any changes into the core indicators. As to, for a reminder, certification can be achieved only if all the core indicators are met by the operators. In the version 3 of the standard, we had 15 core indicators over 5 criteria. In the draft proposed standard, we have 16 core indicators over 8 criteria. So you can see we have added some core indicators, as well we have spread those core indicators over a larger number of criteria. As an example, we've added in Principle 1 core criteria related to the land and water rights must be demonstrated. And in Principle 2, we have added several indicators or core indicators to reinforce the importance of health and safety of workers on the operator's premises. So I'm going to go through all the new and current core indicators so you can see what has changed or what is not changing from the version 3 of the standard. In red will be the new addition as core indicators. In green is what is already a core indicator, and remains core indicator, so there is no changes. So we maintain the legal compliance is still a core indicator. As I said, we've added the right to land and water can be or must be demonstrated. As well, the ILO conventions and the indicator related to the ILO convention remain core indicator: minimum age of workers, absence of forced or compulsory labor, absence of discrimination, and respect the right to form and join trade union and or to bargain collectively. Those remain core indicators. The new addition is where the bulk of a new addition of core indicator relate to the health and safety conditions and indicators within our standards. First one, in main health and safety risks are assessed and measured for mitigation of risk are implemented. So health and safety management and mitigation plan. As well, all workers have access to drinking water in sufficient quantity is a core criteria, and access to first aid and provision for emergency response is as well a core criteria. Minimum wage was and remains a core criteria, and existence of contract become a core criteria. On Principle 4, related to the environment, we've retained most of the current core criteria. HCVs area remains core indicator. Environmental impact and management plan remains a core indicator. Agriculture or quantity of agrochemical applied per hectare and per year remain a core criteria. Ban agrochemical applied per hectare per year is a core criteria. It's a new indicator in general, but it's a core criteria. And finally, Greenfield expansion on new sugarcane project covered by an environmental and social impact assessment is and remain a core indicator. So now I'm going to show you the new addition to the standard, the new indicators that have been added to the standard that were not present in version 3 of the standard, and that becomes now part of the new version of the revised standard. The first one is a percentage of land that is legitimately contested by communities is 0%. There mustn't be any land that is legitimately contested by local communities. Number 2 of addition is as well the same related to water. A percentage of water that is legitimately contested by local communities should be 0%. The next one is an indicator related to the maximum number of hours worked. If there is a legal framework for the maximum hours worked, we say that workers can't work more than the maximum number of hours allowed by law. If there is no legal framework for the maximum hours effectively works, workers can't and mustn't work more than 60 hours per week. Overtime is a new addition as well. We require that the overtime is paid at the premium rate, meaning more or equal to 25% of the normal rate. New addition as well, the payment for cane deliveries are made according to agreed contract with cane farmers. Looking at more technical environmental indicators, we have a new indicator for the yield of production, which is based on the location of mills and based on the scientific publication that I did with Professor Kate Brauman from the University of Minnesota. The other new addition is looking at the quality of the effluent. So we look at the level of dissolved oxygen in receiving stream that has to be more or equal to 2.5 ppm. We are as well looking at the use of fertilizer, and for that we will now assess the ratio between the quantity of fertilizer applied to the quantity of fertilizer recommended by soil leaf analysis. The evaluation will be done as currently using element N and P and using a phosphate equivalent. We have as well added a new indicator about the use of banned agrochemicals by international convention, which should be 0 gram of banned chemicals should be 0 kilogram of banned chemicals should be applied per hectare per year. This is to strengthen the importance and the focus on banned chemical and to recognize the importance of the list published by WHO, so WHO 1A, WHO 1B, Rotterdam, Stockholm and Montreal conventions. The last bit of the new additions are the an amendment to the direct employee vocational training that has to be either more superior to 2 working days spent by employees in vocational training, or as it's currently required, percentage of payroll dedicated to training should be equal to or superior to 1%. The following indicator look at the water use efficiency for irrigated cane. And the objective is to have an efficiency higher than 90 kilograms per hectare per millimeter of water, of irrigated water added to the cane. And the last one is percentage of non-production waste categories that are recycled. We look at that there is effective recycling practices for at least 50% of the categories of waste or non-production waste we consider. On top of those new indicators, we've made a small amendment to the value that have to be achieved for compliance with the indicators. For the ground cover of tops and leaves after harvest, we've increased this percentage of ground cover from 20 to 30%. For the soil surface tillage per year, we've now bettered the definition of what has to be considered as tillage, and we've decided and we've agreed that the definition would be only tillage wider than 2 centimeters is to be taken into consideration for this indicator. Finally, there is 2 indicators that have been dropped. First one is percentage of contractors compliant with human rights. It has been dropped only because now this requirement has now been integrated to each of these social indicators. And each social indicator, we look at all the workers and workforce present on the premises of the operator that is assessed, including some permanent worker, contract worker, migrant worker, seasonal worker, and so on. So this indicator still remains, but has been in fact split into each individual social indicator. Indicator 4.1.4, use of co-product does not affect traditional use, has been removed. Now I'd like to share with you the changes we've made to the guidance and introduce those changes to you. So the audit guidance is now has been now changed to the guidance for implementation. So now the guidance is addressed directly to the operators, to the millers, and to the farmers. They will look at those guidance to have much more guidance on how to implement and become compliant with the requirement of the standards. So it contains further requirements, and for each indicator, more details are given. We've especially put a focus on how to build the various management plans that are required, especially to strengthen the importance of the plan, do, check, act principles. We have as well significantly amended this guidance to bring much more clarity in the content of the text and to better support the operators in their achievement of certification, implementation of the requirement of the standards. We have as well improved the link between the standard and the guidance by making a clear reference to the guidance within the note of the standards. So now it's clear that when you look at the standards, you have to look at the guidance at the same time because it's part of the note. And the guidance and the standard also clarify the chain of responsibility, meaning that because the applicant to certification is the mill holds the final responsibility for compliance. So what are the next steps? The next step is, if you have, now that you have received the copy of those revised standards and guidance that I'm going to resend at the end of this webinar, you will be able to send us any comments on, any comment that you want to share with us, so after I can report that to the Standard Revision Committee. By the end of this week, I will have published online those draft documents in English, Portuguese, and Spanish, so everybody can have a look at it. By the 23rd of June, we will have published the final completed draft with introduction and access, so that can be sent and be finalized and prepared for the final step of the approval process. Being third, the approval of the board. The board must approve that the Standard Revision Committee and Bonsucro has followed the procedure and process for revision of the standards. This will take place at the next July board meeting, which is so in a few weeks' time. When the board has recognized that we follow the process of revision, we will be able to put the final text, standard and guidance forward to members for approval. The vote will take place by the end of July online, and the rules are the following. The quorum is at least 7 voting members will be present, and the rule for adoption is that we achieve 2/3 majority of members voting. Then, when if the vote and the text is approved between August and September, we will design and peer review the translation, so we'll be able to publish all the text, finalized, designed, peer reviewed in September for the start of enforcement of the new revised standard. And by September 2014, as well, the time when we start requalifying the lead auditors and auditors, so the audit can take place against the new revised standard. The first training will take place in Campinas, Brazil, Sao Paulo State, on the 15th and 16th of September for the requalification standards, and 11th and 12th of September for the requalification of auditors, and 15th to 18th of September as well in Campinas for a new training on the whole new standards that is open to any members and stakeholders interested in learning in depth the new standards. So now I would like to open the Q&A box to question, if you have any question on this presentation and those new indicators. So I will really ask you to use this Q&A box that is at the bottom right corner of your screen and write any question. So I will be able to answer them and hopefully clarify any point that might not be clear enough. how is the farmer certification and group certification process with pilot audit in Brazil going? So just to re-clarify, the pilot audit we did in Brazil, the 2 pilot audits that was carried out in line in scope of this revision of the standard, was carried out at a mill and its supplying base. So we've been auditing some of the ratio of the farmers supplying the mill and the mill, again the revised indicators. Are any of the guidance documents going to be developed and revised? Yet the revised, the guidance document is part of this revision process. So we have revised extensively the revision, the guidance as well as the standards, so that the guidance match the new standard, and we have as well improved and clarify a lot the current guidance. We have a question about what about the chain of custody standard. Indeed, the chain of custody standard is, will be revised from September. So we will start a new process of revision specifically for the chain of custody standard. It will follow the same process and procedure that we follow for the for the production standard, but it will be dedicated to the chain of custody. I've got a question regarding agrochemical. The criteria bands 1A, 1B plus 2 of the conventions. So it seems that class 2 of the WHO list has been left behind. So yes, we've retained WHO 1A, WHO 1B as a minimum of the banned chemicals. If you think is something we should keep on looking at before putting the final text, it's time to still send us an email and justify your points and your justification for including class 2 of the chemicals. We know we've looked at it, especially we've looked at what other organizations are doing. We aimed at consistency among the other organizations and looking at the reality and implementability of new indicators within the sector, so it can have the effect that is expected. But any comments are more than welcome to still be sent to us. Question: should there be an indicator on food security? It's a very good question. So food security, we've made mention of it in the environmental impact and on the environmental and social impact assessment as part of the guidance on how to build your impact assessment. It's something we consider that should be added specifically on that criteria, because it's where it's most relevant to be addressed. So we have another question. I see that the Standard Revision Committee has added criteria on workers' right to drinking water. So just to clarify, the requirement was already present in the standard. It's now the changes is that now the drinking water requirement is a core criteria. So we have, I was wondering if the SRC has discussed adding workers' access to sanitation facilities or Persian discussion on respect of human right to water. So the human right to water has been addressed in a way by adding the obligation to demonstrate the right to water. So if farmers or millers are using water, they have to demonstrate their right to waters. And if there is context, a legal context, there mustn't be as well any legal context against the water used by the operators. Looking at the access to sanitation facilities is not directly, has not been directly addressed within the standard. It's part of the health and safety management plan, where we consider it as well a good place to look at how do we consider and improve and ensure the health and safety of the workers. Part of it is providing clean and sanitation facilities. Now, what about the expectation for the organic certified land and mills to accept this type of audit? So there is no contradiction between being Bonsucro certified and organic certified. Organic operators can, of course, become certified for Bonsucro. There is a lot of alignment between the different standards of organic and Bonsucro. Organic is, they've taken some decision about the use of chemical fertilizer or chemical pesticide, and so binding those chemical inputs in the production processes, which is not a direction that will be taken by Bonsucro. It doesn't mean that an organic mill can't achieve Bonsucro. I think yes, an organic mill can, as any other mills, achieve Bonsucro certification, and there is a lot of compatibility. Another question, are EU red standards being changed? The EU standards, so Principle 6 of the current standards, was not inside the scope of the revision, because the way that the standard was designed, it clearly shows that Principle 6 is dedicated to EU compliance, and we need to have the EU approval to reason to change those indicators if the EU legislation is changing. Although we're going to make an amendment to this Principle 6, in fact an addition, because the highly biodiverse grassland criteria has been now defined by the EU, and we're going to integrate that as part of these changes, just to match the amendment and the changes within the EU legislation to ensure we keep on conformity with the EU legislation. Regarding the fertilizer rate criteria, who decides what is the best practice? What do you do in regions where the research science hasn't been done? How will Bonsucro manage from an audit perspective? So for the fertilizer rate, and I think it's a way as well for us to reinforce the fact that we are not a best practice tool. We are not a best practice standards. The best practice is down to the local experts, local actors, local farmers to know what are and to assess, to evaluate what are the best practice for their land. What we say that what we look at is the output of those best practice and the ratio. We don't look at when you should apply fertilizer, what kind of fertilizer you should apply, liquid or dry fertilizer, which depth you have to implement it, and so on. What we look at is that you must have recommended amount of fertilizer, so you have to have a recognized methodology to assess your recommendation, and you have to demonstrate that you follow those recommendations. Is what the standard is about, is looking at and evaluating how you follow the recommendation. The recommendation, the methodology has to be backed by science and to be recognized as a methodology for assessing and evaluating the recommendation of fertilizer. And often those recommendations are locally developed, so they are adapted to the condition where the sugarcane is locally grown. As long as the science bends and recognized as a good methodology, then it can be used for the assessment of this indicator. Yields related to place is essential. Good that it is put in the standard. It would be good if amount of fertilizer could have a connection to yield. If the producer uses 100 kg of nitrogen and produces 50 tons of cane per hectare, and how it compares with a producer that uses twice more, the same amount of fertilizer, but produces twice more often sugarcane. That's a very valid comment, and to be honest, it's I think it will be the next step and the next versions of the standard is really to look at the efficient use of fertilizer. Having a yield that is locally adapted was already a 1.5 year research work that has been carried out by Kate Brauman. It was a long work through a large quantity of data to be evaluated, model to be designed and tested, so we can achieve this yield of production. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that with the fertilizer use, but it's clearly something we're going to look at. They want to look at. One of the addition of the standard is as well looking at the water use efficiency for irrigation. How efficient is the use of water to grow cane? We want, and I think it's depends on what the evolution of the standard will be in the coming year, but it's something really to look at as well. What is the efficient use of fertilizer? How we can make that use of fertilizer even more efficient, so we can grow more with less fertilizer. Could you please explain 3.1.2 yields of production in greater details? The draft guidance for PS does not contain the reference material. Indeed, the reference material is not yet published. It has been presented, though, at the sugarcane industry technologies meeting that took place 2 weeks ago in Toronto, where I presented the outcome of the research. We're going to publish that in other material in the coming months. But basically, what we are looking at is at qualifying for each location where sugarcane is grown a range of observed crop per drop achieved by farmers. So we looked at how much cane farmers have been able to grow, looking at the amount of water they have used. So using various models, we have been able to evaluate what is the quantity of water the farmer use, either irrigated cane or rain-fed cane. And we've been then be able to, for each specific area, to plot or to evaluate the range of yields that have been achieved by farmers. Once we have a range of yields, we are looking at who are the best in class, the best performers, and we take those best performers as the reference and then the objective of the standard. If you're anyone more interested, keep looking on the Bonsucro website where we will be able to publish that, but as well I can share with you the presentation I gave in Toronto, so you can have a better understanding of this new indicator. So if we are talking about a recommended yield, now recommended dose of fertilizer, that means are we coming out from the phosphate equivalent? No, we are still keeping the phosphate equivalent as part of the evaluation and calculation of compliance. So when we look at the ratio between applied fertilizer to recommended fertilizer, we look at NEP in agglomerate value or way using the phosphate equivalent. So we look at NAP together using the phosphate equivalent. So we're not going out of the phosphate equivalent. There's always discussion about national interpretation, and it seems that by having different targets for different places, we go in this direction. Should not Bonsucro think about formal national interpretation to deal with those differences? The way we're addressing this national interpretation is by addressing locally adapted indicators. So not all, because it's a complex work to carry out, but we've converted some of the indicator into locally adapted indicators, so we can go toward these locally adapted standards with keeping, and that's the key message and key importance for us, is to keep the same base, the same internationally recognized standard that Bonsucro production standard currently is. So the indicators and the calculation can be locally adapted, but the text is the same. Everybody in the world is using the same text and use the same calculator, and I evaluated again the same criteria. But how we measure and we calculate these indicators is locally adaptable. Is there any other question? ESPA. And the process we will follow is the same that the one we follow for the production standard, meaning a standard revision committee will be appointed, consultation will take place, perhaps pilot audits, and so on. I know and what we expect that during the Bonsucro week later this year, in November this year, a public consultation will be held on the proposed revised chain of custody standard if the standard revision committee has been able to put a proposal forward by that time. Be certified against the national interpretation of Bonsucro, it's not possible because there is only one text, there is only one version of the standard, which is the globally implemented standard. So there is no national interpretation of the Bonsucro standard. After to repeat what I said, we've developed new indicators that are locally adapted or adaptable, and then the key message is that locally adapted indicators, but within one global standard. So we can look at them. I can report them to the standard revision committee. And we have a last little question, which is what is the difference between 3.1.2 and 5.2.2? Good question. And then there is another one, are there disclosure recommendations? I'm not sure I fully understand this question, but you can clarify it. Then the difference between 3.1.2 and 5.2.2 is that in 3.1.2, we look at the yield of production. So although we've been looking at the water use and the efficient water use, so how much the principle is called crop per drop, so how many ton of cane per water use or per cubic meter of water is used. This has been converted through model and through evaluation into yield. 5.2.2 look at the water use efficiency, which is kilogram per hectare of cane per millimeter of irrigated water added to the cane. 3.1.2 we look at rain-fed cane and irrigated cane, where 5.2.2 only look at irrigated cane. So it's not exactly the same principle at the back in the background, and at the end it gives two very different indicators. Recommendation or is there any recommendation or requirement to publicly disclose management plans or performance following GRI, for example? There is recommended, it's not an obligation, but in the guidance we've made a recommendation to the mills to make the summary of the environmental, social, and impact assessment as well as the environmental impact management plan public. So it's a recommendation, it's not an obligation, but it's a recommendation. So to encourage them to communicate widely their plans. And a summary of their plans, this is to understand, to preserve any confidentiality information or requirements. Okay. So I would like just to ask you last time if you have a question. So if you see one jumping on the box for Q&A. Anyway, we're going to summarize all those Q&A and make the answers available to everybody. It might take us a bit of time, but hopefully we'll be done within the next 2 weeks, so we can look at them again. Send us any comment on the revised document, and as soon as we finish this conference webinar, I'm going to send you this presentation so you can look at it again, and the recording of that presentation will as well be available at a little later stage, so you can re-listen again to those explanations. So I would like to thank you very much for attending this presentation. I hope it has been useful. I wish you all a very good day or good evening, and hope to see you soon again. See you again very soon. Thank you and bye-bye.